Hey, welcome to Discourse Dudes. I'm Trevor.
I'm Dylan.
And we're your Discourse Dudes. We're not the Discourse Dudes, but we are your Discourse Dudes, just to be clear.
I gave her $30 when she got on her hands and knees and begged me. Why didn't it happen, Trevor?
This is the first thing we need to address here, right? First, this is the first episode we're recording, I feel like, with a significant gap in between recording sessions. Like, we'd been doing like 2 episodes a week for like a steady pace. We took a few weeks off, and something that happened in between the last episode we did and this one now that we're doing here at the we're just about to enter the last week of November. So of course, the presidential election has happened, and Donald Trump has won the presidency for the next 4 years.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, and it's like impossible not to think that it's going to have some kind of impact on the way we do the rest of the show, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's already been felt throughout Twitter. Kind of almost an interesting time for us to be doing this project,
Yeah.
or at least hoping that we could maybe do it going forward, because something we'll talk about once we reach the November episode, which I will say, I'm like 80%, 90% of the way through making the November list. That episode is going to be extremely cursed.
Oh, yeah.
That episode is going to be horrible to sit through.
It kind of feels like this has canceled season 2 of Discourse Dudes, right?
Right, because I mean, what I was going to imply there was like we're potentially seeing a mass exodus from Twitter. I hope people are still on the site when we release these things so that they can listen to them. But yeah, the future of this show, it's always been a little unclear. Now I want to say more unclear than ever.
Yeah. It was a crazy night. We'll always remember that night. I was dancing in my living room to Maneater by Hall & Oates, and then it showed the electoral map with her losing. A huge record scratch noise played, and then it zoomed in on my face, and I said, that just happened.
Yeah, I guess it was the American people who couldn't go for that, right?
That's right.
Or wait, no, that was 10cc.
Still works.
Let's talk about the month that we're here to talk about today, though, which is July 2024.
Oh, were we ever so young?
Right? We're probably gonna see a lot of stuff that we talked about back in this month that is going to change due to the hindsight, but that's kind of really been the whole purpose of making this list. So do you want to get into it?
I want to get into it. I want to get into July.
All right, well, let's start with the first point of discourse that Twitter talked about in July 2024. It's a question, and the question was, is this mall patron who dresses up as a little green wizard and scurries through businesses bothering retail employees and service workers?
Right, okay. Yeah, of course.
Remember this guy, the little green wizard?
Yeah, and that weird, like, super overdriven flute music that would accompany him.
Yeah, I think it was this guy who would dress up in this green cloak, and he had like a weird little hat on, and did he have like a fly swatter or something he was holding? I remember he had like a little pink implement or something.
Yeah, and then he'd like wave it angrily in a little chattering voice. Like,
yeah, while scurrying around on his hands and knees. He would go to like mall food courts and like find Burger Kings and stuff and like go back behind the counter and like run around or something. That's my memory.
Yeah, and then like the manager would kick him out. And I'm definitely not into it's the most miserable thing in the world to work in a mall
like
food
that
court.
was my initial reaction. Like, why are you doing this to these people? Like, I get that it's a funny outfit and a funny thing to do, but like I come down very squarely on one side of this question. Like, yeah, if I were at a mall or any kind of job really, and some dude burst in dressed like a little wizard trying to record his little viral video, I'd be pissed as hell.
It'd be funny if he was doing it at a bank.
Yeah, I guess so.
Then the cops show up and everybody's freaking out at him. Yeah, the one argument I remember seeing when people were like, but why would you do this to these minimum wage employees? The one response that made me laugh is like, oh no, he's Scandinavian.
He doesn't know better.
He doesn't know any better.
What do you think about this one, though? Nothing is moving the needle for me towards Boom. I feel like a Doom is a pretty safe one for this.
Yeah, and didn't he immediately do all the things that people do when these things jump the shark, like start adding characters and shit like that? I think we got to Doom him.
I don't remember that arc, but it's something I could see happening. So we'll give that one the Doom. Next up. Dua Lipa listens to aspiring musician play one of his songs for 30 seconds at Glastonbury.
Wow, this was just back in July. I would have thought that was more recent.
No, this was a clip that went around. Dua Lipa performing at Glastonbury. I guess some dude came up to her, caught her between sets just walking around or something. I don't know what she was doing out among the proles, but
It almost seemed like he was interviewing her or something. Like she was there to be interviewed or something.
possibly. But yeah, if that was the pretext, what he spent that time doing was saying like, "Hey, I'm a musician. Can you listen to this song that I wrote?" And am I remembering it incorrectly? Did he play it on a guitar or a ukulele?
I think it was a ukulele, right?
God, in my memory, it's a ukulele, but like I feel like I'm trying to like subconsciously almost like be more like, give this guy more of a disservice than he even deserves.
Yeah, here it is. Ukulele player Liam C. went for a viral impromptu performance to Dua Lipa at Glastonbury.
So yeah, it really was that bad. I guess, yeah, but this dude pulled out the ukulele, played 30 seconds. Did she say like you can have 30 seconds? Because I remember it was like exactly 30 seconds and then she dipped. She was like, "It's very good. Thank you. Bye."
Yep.
Yeah.
And she also makes a great face during the performance as well.
I could maybe see giving this one the boom just because it is like, there's a lot of fun, awkward energy in that video. But again, I don't feel super strongly about this one. These two things already strike me as like classic early of the month, like discourse machine, just warming up topics.
I'll give it a marginal boom. It's fun to watch her experience that moment and be like barely tactful about it.
Marginal boom. That sounds okay to me.
If you want to run away with me, I got a ukulele and I can play it for 30 seconds.
Ukulele season's over. Okay, what do we got next? Next, we have a question that I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about. You got to wonder if this conversation would be a little different now. Should Kamala Harris replace Joe Biden as the Democratic presidential nominee?
Yes, I'm with her.
This was a big fallout conversation. I think we might have even started touching on it at the end of the last episode, because this was really all that people were talking about following that initial Trump v. Biden debate,
Right.
where everyone was like, "Oh shit, are we going to lose this?"
Yeah, I wonder if so if you kind of trace what was leaked and like what little comments were, it sounds like Pelosi was pushing for a fast open primary at the DNC and didn't want Biden to endorse Kamala, essentially canonizing her as the candidate. Mistakes were made. What are you going to do?
A lot of us are, I think, going to spend a long time wondering about like what would have happened differently if things had been different, for sure.
Probably not that much. I mean, the reality of this thing was, if you look globally, pretty much all over the world, whether it was a conservative government or a liberal government, incumbents were defeated. People were all over the world mad about inflation and pulled the other lever, so to speak.
It was a change year, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, Kamala represents the old guard of establishment corporate Democrats, and maybe their time is drawing near. I kind of doubt this will create like any meaningful change in the Democratic Party, though. Like, do you really think any of those fucking portfolio goons are gonna have a come to Jesus moment over this? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, not at all. What are you thinking for this round of discourse though?
There's nothing to boom here, is there? It's just chitter chatter.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very fraught moment with like a lot of anxiety going on. But yeah, that doesn't get like a boom for me for any reason. So yeah, let's doom this one.
Yep.
More music talk coming up. Kendrick Lamar releases music video for Not Like Us.
This is a funny video.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember it super well, to be honest. I am like I've never been the biggest music video guy. I feel like, I'm a big music enjoyer. I will watch a music video. I feel like a lot of them don't really stay with me. Really, the only one I remember about this one, he had the clown in it. He had a clown in it that was like supposedly some famous LA hip hop clown or something, which sounds ridiculous that's a thing.
Sure. Yeah, I remember that. There's that one funny part where he sea walks on a hopscotch board. Remember that?
That's the other thing I remember. Yeah, and then I remember that his wife and kids were in it at the end, because that was kind of like a talking point on the Drake side of the beef.
I called it sea walk because I didn't want to upset any of our Bloods listeners.
I think that's probably a good idea. I hope, when you did say that, you were using the bee emoji.
Yeah, I was.
Or at least doing like whatever the vocal equivalent of that was.
Totally.
Do you want to give this one a boom then?
I guess so. I mean, was there discourse? I don't know. It feels mean to doom it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does feel like one of the more minor like episodes in the ongoing Kendrick Lamar versus Drake arc. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like annoying to watch people talk about this or anything, so I think this one could get by on a marginal boom.
Yeah. Marginally Metro boomed.
Next up, film critic. Oh God, this was a big one. But I feel like I missed a lot of the discourse personally, and it took me a while to get at the heart of what was going on here.
Okay.
Film critic faces backlash for showing his girlfriend his favorite movie, Miami Vice. One particular commenter, a former Guggenheim curator, argues about the topic for multiple days.
Yes, I know that this was a thing that happened. I remember it became this weird gendered argument about showing trashy boy movies to girls or whatever. I don't know.
I just remember this was one, I remember distinctly, this was one bullet for the list where I genuinely had to do some kind of at least a little bit of research.
Right.
To get an idea of what was happening, because this whole second stage, this is one of the rare multi-phased discourses. You get through it and then the health bar fills right back up. I never encountered this former Guggenheim curator.
Right.
And I still was unclear on what role exactly they played in it. It seemed like at a certain point, the guy who posted the movie transitioned out of the main character role, and this Guggenheim curator took that on.
I guess so. Michael Mann movies are for the boys. What are you going to do?
I guess so. Just looking at this sentence, though, I'm a little my annoyance is rising. I kind of want to doom this one.
I don't have any argument to boom this, so feel free.
I feel like at a certain point, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Twitter just became obsessed with Michael Mann. Did you also get that impression?
I do. It feels like, obviously Heat's great.
I like his movies.
It feels like he's getting the dude pass that Tony Scott deserves.
Hey, speaking of the Scotts, though, next up on the discourse list, Ridley Scott releases first trailer for Gladiator 2.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you just see that last night?
I did see it last night. It was pretty okay. Ridley Scott, he can be really hit or miss. This one, I would say marginally, it was a marginal boom. I will say that.
It was a marginal boom. Yeah, I'm sure Denzel was good, right?
Yeah, he was in beast mode. Everyone else was pretty solid. But this trailer got a lot of backlash when it was released from a certain pocket of the internet, mainly because not only did Ridley Scott choose to cast a black actor in this movie,
oh, it was this thing,
but the trailer was soundtracked by some hip hop song by, get this, Jay-Z and Kanye West, rappers.
What?
A song by rappers in a movie about ancient Rome.
Don't they know that this is for the whites?
I guess that was the argument.
Who cares? Who gives a shit about this kind of discourse?
Big doom for me, probably.
Major doom.
Okay, this one I feel like we really were able to dig into this and figure out some true answers about the kind of the human experience. Dylan, let me ask you a question. Do you think male yearning exists?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
This month's coming together, and I'm not excited about it so far.
No, it's a rough one. Just looking ahead, there are some things where, we're gonna have to get into it. But first off, does male yearning exist?
This is just reheated discourse of is there a male Taylor Swift? In my opinion, you're asking the same essential emotional question about men, right?
It's interesting that you say that, because I feel like not necessarily, but the question does have the exact same energy.
Right. Of course, male yearning exists. Anybody who's been in a long-term friendship with a member of the opposite sex, a woman to a man, and has gotten an odd vibe from them knows that male yearning exists.
Yeah, and I hate to speak to the disadvantages that have arisen as a result of just every form of art and media being so male dominated for
right.
the past thousands of years. But sorry ladies, but yearning as you know it was kind of popularized by men.
Hey, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? You know what I mean?
Right? Come on, this is basic stuff. Did you have English class in school?
I don't really know how this got traction.
Seems like the kind of thing that Twitter would pick up and run with to me. Does it deserve that? That's another question. Does it deserve a boom or doom? That's the question we're going to answer right now.
Who's booming this? Who would boom this? Even the Rizzler on Jimmy Fallon wouldn't boom this.
Even the most generous boomer would have to turn up his nose.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. I think a doom for this one.
Ooh, Bill Gates, very generous boomer.
Sure. With those vaccines, at least. All right. More movie talk coming down the pipe. Kind of. George Clooney publishes opinion piece in the New York Times stating that the Democratic Party needs a new nominee. So maybe this was all his fault.
Yeah, that was silly. I mean, I can't boom it. There's nothing to boom, right?
No, I mean, this was definitely a real like head turner of a moment in this whole little arc. Like, who saw George Clooney entering the ring, right? Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it all harkens back to the essential like personality defect of the corporate Democratic Party, like the post Clinton, but also like post Obama Democratic Party of it's like, yeah, I know entitlements. Yeah, I know labor or whatever. You know, Beyonce really likes this lady.
All right, so we're giving that one the doom.
Yeah, I'm dooming it.
More movie talk. Next up, Shelley Duvall dies at 75.
Oh, bummer.
This was a bummer.
I kind of want to boom it though, because it was a lovely moment for everybody to just appreciate what a unique, incredible force of nature she was on screen.
That's true. I've always been like, a fan of her work in the movies I've seen her in. It was nice to see her celebrated. So yeah, why don't we boom that one?
There's also that one Twitter user who had like a strange, close relationship with her, like started a Shelley Duvall fan page and then became buddies with her.
Oh yeah. It'd be cool if like maybe she should start a podcast with that crazy lady who runs the Timothy Chalamet fan club.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Shelley Duvall, what a winner of a human being, and also the greatest olive oil who ever exists.
More presidential talk coming up next. Mr. Beast claims that he would run for president if not for age restrictions, and describes what his presidency would look like.
Is this our first Mr. Beast talking point of the year?
I think it might be, yeah, our inaugural Mr. Beast discourse point.
What a curious little gremlin of a man he is, huh?
Yeah, I will say, just to jump ahead, a lot of the Mr. Beast discourse, or at least some of the major Mr. Beast discourse, we've touched on this a little bit in previous episodes, didn't really make the list. Like, Mr. Beast is a guy who has kind of had a career upheaval over the past year, with regards to a lot of light being shown on some of the shadier practices of just his entire empire, I guess you would call it by this point. But a lot of the discourse that I saw on like some of those videos that were coming out that were making allegations against him, I feel like those never really escaped the bubble of like, the YouTube segment of my For You page that I occasionally see. I didn't really see a lot of like normal, regular people talking about this stuff.
If the discourse couldn't escape the bubble, just the exact same way that man's smile can't escape his mouth and reach his eyes.
Yeah, but this one did. I did see a lot of people talking about this little claim he made where he was like, yeah, if I could run for president, I would do it. And you know what? I would just hire the best people for the job and I wouldn't have any agendas. I would just do what the American people want me to do. I don't get why we don't have a president who does that.
I think we've established that on Discord dudes, like YouTube drama is at a bit of a disadvantage in our format.
Right.
But perhaps as we've also mentioned, if this goes on and on, maybe someday my almost 7-year-old daughter will run her own segment where she keeps us up on the YouTuber shit.
Right. We can only invest in the future like that.
Right. I believe the children are our future, and I believe that this Mr. Beast story probably is not boom worthy, but there's almost no booms this month. So what do we do?
I enjoyed his follow up where he started listing what traits of what his presidency would look like, and they were the most basic ass shit. Like this has like a little bit of enough stupid, overconfident white boy energy for me to get the boom.
I think if any YouTuber will be president, it's going to be one of the Paul brothers. They just have that hateable energy that tells me they'll be president someday.
Sure. And, they've demonstrated just recently, they're real winners. When they set their mind to something, they do it and they win.
Yep. That's true.
Let's give the Mr. Beast bullet a marginal boom, I think.
Sure.
I've got an etiquette question for you up next. Is it annoying that polite society requires you to have an open bar at your wedding?
I hate this shit.
Yeah.
This kind of rich people etiquette bullshit, I hate it.
This discourse at least came my way via a quote tweet in my For You page from an account that I see all the time and I just loathe them. One of a handful of those accounts. I'm sure everybody has those accounts. They haven't muted them or blocked them for whatever reason. Probably because you get some kind of weird, not endorphin or dopamine hit when you see their posts, but whatever kind of weird, satisfying itch you get from seeing somebody whose opinions regularly drive you crazy drop an opinion that drives you crazy.
An obnoxiousness power user, if you will.
Yeah, one of those types. But I think this did spring off in a much bigger discourse because I remember seeing posts about this for several days. Again, yeah, just so unbearable to sit around watching people talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see any pathway to a boom here. I don't really think it's worth for us to sit here and litigate like whether we think it's appropriate to have an open bar at your wedding.
Oh my God, that sounds so loathsome. Please.
So maybe we just hit the doom here and move on.
Yeah.
Okay, back to politics. Joe Biden mistakenly refers to President Zelensky as President Putin at NATO event shortly before holding press conference during which he refers to Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump.
That's right. Oh boy.
This is real 1-2 punch for the guy.
It was the countdown. The countdown was happening.
Yeah.
I think what was going on here that whole like week or so was that he had like a cold. And when you're that old, like it gets real bad.
Yeah.
Whenever you're sick.
Yeah, but this was a very high pressure moment for the Biden campaign. Tons of calls for him to step down, name a successor, do anything to get out of the race. His team was just like holding the line. No, he's good. He's fine. He can do it. There's nothing wrong. And it seemed like he was doing something like this like every hour. It was truly the closest we've gotten to like a Mr. Magoo presidency, it feels like.
I got a real soft spot for Biden doddering.
Yeah.
Even in the wake of how dark American politics would then become, I gotta boom this one.
Yeah, I feel like there has been an instance or two where like something like this has not quite managed to get the boom. But I feel like just the quick succession of the two events forming this bullet together.
And I remember there being some good remixing of other like fake malapropriisms coming out of the Biden camp and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. So we'll give that one the boom. Boom. Next up, we got an update from the Costco guys. Costco guys collaborate with Sam's Club guys on new video and release song. This was the first I heard of the Sam's Club guys. I feel like I haven't heard of them since. Maybe this was like a brief moment in history where it was looking like we were going to get a bunch of different varieties of guys.
Yeah, constellation of retail guys. But
yeah,
the song in question, though, what are we talking about here?
I think that's the one that's like, we bring the boom.
Okay.
That's what we do. I think it was that one.
You were saying Sam's Club guys, and I'm like, oh, am I going to doom a Costco guys bullet point? But if we're talking about we bring the boom, I mean, song of the year, probably.
Well, first off, the Sam's Club guys video, I remember this one. I think it was a solid Costco guys video, if only because of the juxtaposition of the stuff you get at Costco versus the stuff you get at Sam's Club. It was like, we're Costco guys. We got a chicken bake and a double chunk chocolate cookie. And they're like, we're Sam's Club guys. We got a blueberry frozen icy.
Do you believe for a second that the Sam's Club guys are eating at the Sam's Club food counter? There's no way.
I didn't even know there was such a thing, to be honest.
There's one even, you can get a fucking terrible chicken tender at a Walmart if you're a psycho. You could do it.
That's true. So maybe a bit of a misguided collab. Maybe they were just trying to ride the Costco guys' rising star up to the top. I don't think it happened.
Doesn't matter though, because we bring the boom. That was straight fire.
That one's got the boom on lock. They have a whole discography by this point, right?
Yeah.
I think all of the songs are kind of just like a riff on that one. Like they have titles like "Still Bringing It" and like "New Boom" and stuff like that.
Oh man, "Still Bringing It" is another one, man.
So yeah, we'll give that one. Probably to be expected. This Costco guy's bullet gets the boom. Boom!
I know, they have the booms on lock. It's hard.
They bring them. Mm-hmm. Okay, next up. This is a video that I've actually seen have a slight resurgence in popularity within the past few days. Twitter users share various opinions on video of female office workers standing in a circle and chanting attributes of Gen Z girl bosses. This bullet took me a while to phrase, I remember, because I was genuinely not really sure how to describe what was going on in this clip.
Yeah.
But I think I got it.
It's semiotically rich what's going on in the clip.
Right. We're talking, of course, about, Gen Z boss in a mini. Gen Z boss in a mini.
Itty bitty titties and a bob.
Yeah.
The fun thing about it is they're clearly Australian.
Right.
But because of the way that they're chanting, you could kind of miss it the first few times.
It's interesting that you bring that up because that is what is being talked about on Twitter now. That video is being reposted by conservative accounts in response to the Trump victory, saying things like, "I'm so glad we beat this." And yeah, like I didn't know that this was in Australia
right
until I saw that brought up in response to this round of discourse. But listening back to it, the voices are unmistakable.
Fake 10 hands and a hoop.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like it's overnight transformed for me.
Now, whereas when the conservatives are talking about what we've lost looking at the Alien Ant Farm video, or talking about why Western men have moved on from Western women, looking at the sorority video, I feel like I'm seeing the world through like schizophrenia conservative eyes.
Yeah.
I think that this video does hit on a reality of lib life, lib work culture, lib management culture. The conservative bros are not tilting at windmills in this example, in my opinion.
Sure, they're just slightly off target when it comes to like region.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, because you are looking at like the yassification of let's get the board together and make a TikTok, and like meanwhile HR is like, yeah, we're gonna have to lay some people off because blah blah blah.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And also the weirdness of like, you're all executives and you're talking about each other's tits and shit like that. It's so weird.
I think this is one clip where I would love to read some kind of like oral history from the creators about like what prompted them to make this video, you know, like what was going on that day, just because like I remember watching it and not really being sure what the point was, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it was already a trend, I believe. I don't think they started it.
I thought that this was where it started.
I believe it starts with friend groups doing this, where they're all chanting something that's like a kind of a sneak diss on themselves, right?
I just don't have that background, I guess. This was the first time I've seen, you know, this like, I guess, cadence or like format of that.
It's just the fact that it's moved to a boardroom and it's executives of some kind of a cosmetics company that makes it pop. But also, I think a few things make this pop. I think there is something compelling about this footage. I've never scrolled past it. Every time it makes an appearance on my For You page, I sit there transfixed and look at it.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's like that clip of that really terrible band with the horns covering Rage Against the Machine or whatever.
New Frank Green and a sneaky link.
So where does that leave us with booming or dooming this one? I feel like it has become such a hallmark of the 2024 online experience that it probably deserves the boom.
Yeah, I think so too. You can quote any one of these in a tweet under a thing and people know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, kind of, you know, an instantly iconic video.
Yeah, I got to boom it too.
You know, surprisingly, the boom column is kind of catching up to the doom. We're just about even by this point. It feels like it's been a rough month, but we could kind of still eke this out.
All right, we'll see.
We're just approaching the halfway mark of the list, too. Let's keep going. A House Democrat reportedly says that a group of super friends will attempt to tell Biden to step down.
Okay, yeah, I remember Super Friends. That was funny.
Did we ever get a list of who that supposedly was going to be? I'm sure, like, what?
We got a lot of fake ones, I remember.
Barack Obama was probably on there.
George Clooney.
Yeah, George Clooney. Maybe Dick Cheney. Were they trying to get Dick Cheney to go?
He was already in the pocket with them.
Classic lib move. But I don't think, you know, I'm sure it was fun to sit around that day and, like, you know, make jokes about politicians being referred to as the super friends or, like, you know, pontificate.
But it doesn't go any further than that, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. This one feels like a doom for me.
Yep. Doom it.
Next up, a pretty big one, maybe the biggest news of the month. Donald Trump shot at and injured when gunman opens fire during a rally in Pennsylvania.
Oh boy, what a day.
This was a crazy day.
What a day.
One of the rare days where something happens.
And I just remember the news flying around, the memes, the scolding, the discourse. It was all happening that day.
Yeah, I mean, nothing like this has ever happened within my lifetime either. A political figure of like, you know, of this magnitude being almost like, you know, assassinated before our very eyes.
Oh my gosh. And like it was all flavors of discourse that day. You had heckler and jecklers making your jokes. You had some legitimate frustration that that it was unsuccessful. You had leftist turncoats saying like, this is not the way. We don't want this to happen. This is bad for the country. You had God bless Trump, God bless America. You had annoying think piece type tweets as well. I mean, it was all happening.
Yeah, and this discourse kind of had like a very interesting like arc or tale too, because I feel like when it happened, a lot of people automatically jumped to the conclusion that this would cinch the election for Trump.
Yeah.
Like surviving this assassination attempt, that's it. It's in the bag. He got it. But then, like, I feel like only days later, or maybe it was weeks, like once the campaigns started to change shape a little bit, but like people did not talk about this at all.
Yeah, it was like swept away immediately.
And I remember the main talking point was like, isn't it crazy that we all thought that was going to have such a big impact on the election? Now it's like it never even happened.
What do you think that was? Was that like intentional culture jamming to try to stop Trump momentum in the media? Was that what it was?
It was probably a mix of that and just a genuine example of our media machine like moving on at light speed and like nobody being able to really stick to anything anymore.
Right, gotcha.
Multiple factors at play, I'm sure.
Of course this is a boom though, right?
This is a big boom. Yeah, I mean, this was one of the craziest things we got to talk about on Twitter all year. You know, it wasn't like a big celebratory rush like when Trump got COVID back in 2020. But man, everyone was on this one.
I can't even think of a world in which we doom this other than if we're like performatively dooming it to say like, you know, democracy almost died that day.
Yeah. If we were one of those kind of political podcasts. Boom. We've got a bit of a less monumental one up next. Not safe for work bot accounts seemingly disappear from Twitter.
Oh man, yeah, okay. Can you take me through this one again?
I could give you a little bit of background just because I feel like at multiple points throughout 2024, I felt like this was something that maybe should have gone onto the list, but it was really just more of like an ever-present presence on the site rather than just a single round of discourse or even multiple rounds of discourse. But within the past year, this certain variety of not safe for work Twitter bot popped up where the main method of it doing its thing was to respond to big posts, specifically with the phrase "my pussy" in bio. Do you remember that?
That's right. Yeah. So and then I think there were lots of copycat ones, right?
There was just like a whole wave of these things, and of like, you know, you could kind of, as it went on, you could watch them getting like a little smarter.
They would use characters like swapped in for some of the letters, I think, to avoid detection from the spam filters.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the spam filters still got them, so it was to the point where like you would find a big post, you would see that the first reply was like hidden, and you would know that it was a bot saying "my pussy" in bio.
Right.
But for some reason, you would still click on it. Like, oh, I wonder what this is. And then it would be "my pussy" in bio. And you go, oh yeah. At least that was my experience.
Pussy in bio is an evocative phrase.
It is.
You know?
Yeah.
It has a power.
But eventually, almost overnight, it seemed, those bots kind of vanished from the site.
Right.
And that spurred a solid enough round of discourse that it made the list finally.
I feel like there is like a certain energy that Pussy in Bio has, a certain 2024-ness, you know?
It almost reads as 2024 as Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter sounds.
Right.
Just to refer to, you know, a previous round of discourse. I don't know if this gets the boom from me, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this moment in and of itself is that curious. If somehow the Pussy in Bio bots had been distilled into their own bullet point, I think I'd have more goodwill towards it.
Right. That would have been an earlier bullet point in the year, I think. But yeah, like I said, it just never really happened.
But it's not the kind of thing that is happening in enough of a concentration to have become its own bullet point, you know? So instead, we're forced to look at this moment, which is, you know, again, it's condensed enough to be a bullet point, but am I excited about it? I'm not really, you know.
No, and it's not like, you know, Twitter doesn't still have a major, like, not safe for work spam problem.
And I'm not dooming it with any hate in my heart or disgust in my stomach. I'm just not booming it, you know.
It doesn't get there. So we'll doom it. Moving on. Donald Trump names Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his 2024 running mate.
Oh, is couch fucking in this bullet point, or is that a later bullet point?
That is a later bullet point. We'll get to it.
Cool. Then I'm fine dooming this because I don't think there's anything that exciting about like, look, a tech bro, until people kind of find the narrative and run with it, you know?
Yeah, I see. Would you call him a tech bro? I don't know if I'd call JD Vance a tech bro.
I guess he's like a crypto adjacent, smarmy, because he wrote a book, right? That's the thing. I wrote a book. I had a TED talk.
Hillbilly elegy. When I think of JD Vance, I don't really think of like the tech bro scene too much. Maybe that's just based on my own limited information, but I think of him as one of those classic like, oh yeah, I grew up poor and I saw how the poors abuse the good stuff we give them.
Right.
But I wasn't like those poors. I was able to pull myself up to the bootstraps.
I was a good poor.
Yeah, and since I've seen the real bad stuff in this country, I have, the experience to do stuff about it. And like this guy entering the campaign, not something that I find particularly boom worthy.
Yeah, I can't boom anything about this. Who cares?
Next up, the Milwaukee food scene is underrated, as evidenced by pasta flight.
Okay.
Now, Dylan, you're a culinary guy. I would expect this one to excite you.
I think the flight thing is silly. I think the flight boom is strange to me.
This was a particularly amusing example of the flight boom, too, because I don't know if you remember the picture, but it was fully just like a cutting board with like
3 piles of gloop on it.
4 piles of pasta on it. Yeah, it was ridiculous looking. But it came to us via this message that was like, the Milwaukee food scene is actually fire. Check out this pasta flight.
And then you look at it and you're like, gross.
Yeah. I mean, I like pasta. I'd probably eat it, but like it was not a like, particularly photogenic example of whatever this poster was trying to convey.
Not a stimulating piece of food porn. My wife was just in Madison, Wisconsin. She got some cheese curds and a brat.
Oh man, I would go to Wisconsin regularly growing up. And I would always love getting the cheese curds. The cheesy bread that they got out there is really good.
Hot cheese curds and a brat. Hot cheese curds and a brat.
Like Milwaukee definitely has food for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the pasta flight would be the first thing I order. How are you feeling about this one, boom or doom?
I can't boom this. It's it's a picture of somebody's food. Who gives a shit?
That's fair. Tell me how you feel about this next one, though. Tenacious D tour canceled by Jack Black after Kyle Glass makes joke about Trump assassination attempt on stage.
Yeah, good. It's good. I enjoy it. It's funny to watch this group implode as a result of Kyle Gass being a bad improv comedian.
Maybe
the funny thing is that he could have made this joke in a bulletproof way. He could have. He's not funny. He's Kyle Gass. He's not like a comedic mind.
He's not the reason why people go see Tenacious D on tour.
Yeah, he can play guitar kind of good, and so that's why he's in Tenacious D. But he could have done that same bit. He could have been like. Instead, his birthday wish could have been that Donald Trump makes a speedy recovery and my thoughts and prayers are with him, and made the same joke.
All depends on how you sell that one.
But he doesn't have that computer, so he just made like the dumbest version of that joke and everybody got mad at him. Well, some people didn't get mad at him. Some people got mad at Jack Black.
I don't think anybody really got mad at Kyle Glass. I remember this discourse purely being a backlash against Jack Black's decision to kind of like, do what a lot of people saw as like overcorrecting and just flat out cancel the tour.
There was even stuff in that presser or that little release that he did about like, I'm not going to, we need a little break or something like that.
It's so interesting, just poeticism, a real like kind of like it rhymes moment. Just a few months back, Justin Timberlake was convinced that his tour was going to be canceled. Now we've got Jack Black's tour actually being canceled.
What tour?
The world tour. So this was an interesting moment, though. I feel like it was kind of maybe the first genuine mass backlash against Jack Black that I've seen in my life. I feel like people generally, maybe like he doesn't have like a bulletproof filmography or anything, but people genuinely enjoy him when he shows up in things. He was, riding the high of that Mario movie, which a lot of people liked. But it seems like this has kind of tainted the public opinion. I think the fact that the new Minecraft movie coming out around this time also is like not helping him. But I feel like even that is kind of even his appearance in that is suffering as a result of this choice that he made.
I agree with you. I think the tide has turned on him a little because of this moment, and that is having a splash effect onto how the Minecraft thing is being perceived as well.
Yeah, like I don't think anybody would be psyched about the Minecraft movie if this had never happened, but it seemed like
It probably didn't help that he was Claptrap in the Borderlands movie either.
oh right, yeah, just not a good season for the guy. Do we want to boom this one or doom this one?
I kind of want to boom it. I just think it was a compelling cultural moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I feel fine going with the boom on this one too.
And like the idea that this election year claimed Tenacious D as a casualty is interesting.
Pretty interesting. Who saw that coming, right? I bet that wasn't on your 2024 bingo card, as they say.
Oh,
This next one, I don't even really remember this happening, so kind of a minor thing. Biden tests positive for COVID-19.
oh yeah, this felt like he had COVID, I believe, during the weekend that he eventually steps down, right? But yeah, I don't think the COVID bullet point of it all was much more than a what's going to happen, and the answer was nothing.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this one a doom, I think.
Doom.
More Biden talk up next. After weeks of pressure, Joe Biden finally steps down from 2024 election. So big moment here.
And he endorses. So he kind of he decides fuck your democracy.
Yeah, you know, whatever. You want Kamala, go nuts. We'll see how that works out for you.
Yeah, this is a big moment. It was a big moment. We all kind of saw it coming, of course.
Definitely. It wasn't like a big surprise. I do think like there was like a slight shock that it actually did happen, just because I feel like Biden stepping down is one of those things that feels like a lot of people might spend a lot of time talking about it only for nothing to manifest there. And the fact that it did was actually like, you know, kind of wow.
But the alternate version of it where he doesn't step down means he would have like trudged to election day with the entire party openly calling for him to be out, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of president is never going to win an election. You can't imagine.
I don't know though. Does this have the juice? At the time, it seems like such a big historical moment that it should have the juice.
It does. I feel like it kind of might squeak by into the boom category based on that. Like this wasn't really something that I'd ever seen happen in my life before. I'm sure that goes, you know, a lot of Twitter users can say the same.
Right.
So it definitely was a moment. And I think it might be a good idea to kind of commemorate that moment with a boom.
History proof it. Yeah, eventually a JPEG of that letter will be in a textbook. So maybe we boom it.
All right. So we're going to give that one a boom.
Yeah, we're booming it.
Next up, more election talk. Charlie XCX posts Kamala is brat, prompting many to declare that brat summer is over.
And it kind of was, right?
You know, I will say that this is not the last Charlie XCX point of discourse on this list, but yeah, I do think that this did mark a palpable change in the energy of, you know, brat summer. Pitchfork, I think, even posted like an article about how this marked the end of brat summer, so people were feeling it in the air.
And I don't think anybody cared that much about Brat, and it's completely different, but also still Brat, even though that was the release that had guests on it.
People definitely did talk about things from that release when it came out. I'm pretty sure I got at least one of them coming down the pipe at some point.
Okay.
But this was probably the big last hurrah for the Charlie XCX discourse. Yeah, like I don't think it ever got bigger than this.
In your estimation, is Brat Summer impacted in some way, at least, by this statement?
It definitely, yeah, I would say the big takeaway was yes. And I do think that like this tweet kind of materially binded the Kamala campaign to just the brat atmosphere, the bratmosphere, if you will, for a lot of people.
Sure. Hot cheese curds and a brat.
Even in my own neighborhood, there was a campaign sign on somebody's lawn that was just Harris in the brat font with the green background. So I saw real life applications of this.
Kamala is brat is another one of those 2024 word cloud phrases too, like pussy in bio.
Well, it's a classic example of that form of culture that is mocked in that one famous tweet that's like, is Taylor Swift a feminist ally? Is MasterCard doing all it can to support like queer culture? You know? And the fact that like we got something like that and it immediately caused so many people to go like, okay, this meme is dead.
Yeah.
That was like a real moment that I think everybody perceived and I feel like is enough to get this the boom.
And it's funny that it's not the Kamala camp that's putting it out. It's funny that it's Charlie.
Right. Yeah. It was Charlie XCX. Yeah. It was almost the 2024 equivalent of that horrendous tweet that I think it was Madonna made about
Right.
Hillary Clinton, like something about like Pantsuit Nation or something, how she's going to snatch the presidency.
Yeah. It was definitely the equivalent, the 2024 equivalent, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like the Trump campaign had its own equivalents of that moment, which I think we'll talk about later, but just interesting to see how history repeats itself, I guess.
Agreed. I kind of want to boom it.
We'll boom this one for sure. Boom. This next one was something that kind of like really, I managed to miss this one in like my own personal life, but this was like a real big thing that happened across the world and had a huge impact on a lot of things. I'm talking about the massive IT crash that resulted in vast malfunctioning of Microsoft systems.
Oh, that was a crazy moment. That was a wild day.
That was pretty wild. I remember seeing a lot of pictures of like people in airports and like, you know, like the arrival departure screens were just like big, like blue screens of death and stuff like that, I think.
And it was all down to like one guy fucking up a line of code or whatever.
That's all it was, huh?
Yeah, I think so. They like pushed one of their nightly service updates and it had a bad line in it. And it fucked everything to shit.
My distinct memory of this happening was that I slept in that day and woke up to like a lot of posts about this happening. But I feel like by the time I got to the discourse, it had already been over.
I remember this whole couple of weeks just feeling like so chaotic and like so much crazy shit was happening.
July was a pretty crazy month, like looking back at it. Yeah.
And this felt like part of that tapestry to me.
Yeah.
Like that, just like, oh my God, it's all breaking. Everything. When the machine breaks down, we break down.
Is that enough for it to get the boom, would you say?
Yeah, maybe. I can marginally boom that.
I'll agree with a marginal boom in this case. Boom. Next up, the next in a line of JD Vance bullets. So this is not the last one for the month, but it is maybe strong case for my favorite, to be honest.
Okay.
In old blog post, JD Vance discusses feeling like a woman watching the Zach Braff movie Garden State.
I remember the slug line of this.
Yeah.
I'm sure I read the blog.
I read the blog. I remember being very amused by it. It lived up to the headline, which these things do not always do.
Mm-hmm.
I am, of course, I was born in New Jersey. Whenever Garden State, the movie by Zach Braff, comes up in the discourse, it tickles me. So this was an instant win for me, pretty much.
I can defer to your boom on this one. I don't know in a vacuum if I might have boomed it, but I'll boom it in solidarity.
I think there's a JD talking point still to come that a lot of people would agree is superior to this one, but this one just has a personal intersection for me that I like so much. I'm going to give it the boom.
You've earned it.
Next up, some men go months without being hugged.
What is this male loneliness talking point that doesn't go away?
Right? You hear about this a lot, right? A lot of men go long periods of time without being hugged. I guess a lot of men just really want to hug.
I guess so. Male loneliness epidemic. What are we going to do? What can we as discourse students do? Maybe if this show blows up, we'll have one of those weird, like, live in person influencer appearances, and we will give free hugs, but only to dudes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what happened to that guy who was always going around giving free hugs? Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Like, we need to bring him back, get him specifically targeting men. I feel like that would do a lot to kind of help out with this crisis that the male population is facing.
Ken Nwadiki Jr. There he is.
That was his name? The free hugs guy?
Yeah. He's still alive, apparently. He's 42.
God, just when we needed him most, he vanished.
He's got his own Wikipedia article. Good for him.
But yeah, I don't know if there's anything boom worthy here.
No, sorry. More of the do men have said discourse? I can't do it.
Yeah. This was another rough one coming down the pipe. Man on airplane wears T-shirt stating that he'd rather vote for a convicted felon than Joe Biden.
Right. First of all, what a confusing, like, just the syntactical loops that short slogan gives you, where you have to like sit there and parse it for a second before you totally figure out what he's saying.
Yeah, like, oh, what's this guy's shirt mean? And maybe that's why he had to hold that face that he was holding for so long.
The real smug one.
The real weird smug, like, oh, yeah, you see the shirt, right? Face. I bet you weren't expecting me to wear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, every time I saw this video, it fucking pissed me off.
And he's fucking filming himself, too. It's not like somebody oversaw this and was like, oh, boy, look at this situation. He's like, look what I'm doing.
Imagine waking up the morning of a flight. You're going somewhere. I don't know where it is, but you're getting dressed for the airport.
Packing your little toothbrush. Maybe you're on your way to Milwaukee because you heard that the food scene there is really kicking off.
You want to try one of those pasta flights. You think, what should I wear for my flight? Oh, you know what? I bet would get a big, enough of a reaction that I could film it even. The shirt that I have that says I'd rather vote for a felon than Joe Biden.
What a douchebag.
Looking at this placement on the list, too, I got to wonder if this is a mistake on my point, because notably this is coming after Joe Biden stepping down, So
no, I feel like it was after.
Was it?
I do.
So this guy just missed his moment, really. The time to do that video was like a month ago.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta doom this kind of energy though. It's just a bad energy.
I hate it. Why did we even give any oxygen to this?
I don't know, man.
Okay. Next up, we got something we've been building to for a minute here. Claims that J.D. Vance wrote about having sex with a couch in his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, go viral.
It's just good. It's just good for a lot of reasons. It's a fun way to track how misinformation moves.
Right, because this was completely fabricated, right?
Right. And then also everybody learns it's completely fabricated and then continues to go with it because it's funny.
Yeah, like he's got that energy. I could see it.
And he really does. He does have that energy, doesn't he?
Yeah. I don't know if there's too much to talk about here exactly. I mean, this is a clear kaboom, obviously.
It's a joke that we all made for months.
Yeah.
And people would find new ways to make the joke, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
It even wound up making its way into the actual, you'll have to believe me that there was a moment in this presidential race where, the Democrat Party was actually kind of launching something that looked like an offensive.
Oh, right.
And they actually...
Tim Waltz, in a speech, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he wink at this?
I think they made some oblique references to this before they decided that they would take an entirely different route to winning the election, which, spoiler, they did not do.
Right.
But yeah, this was a big moment. So, and, one that you and I personally both find funny, obviously. So I think it gets the boom.
Yep, booming it.
Boom! All right, next up, we got a little heady with this one. Let me ask you, Dylan. Are our bodies too intelligently designed to not believe in a divine creator?
Okay.
I don't remember us talking about this one, but I think we did.
Wow. Is this a thing that happens in Elon Musk's counter programming, let's lift up the conservative voices algorithm?
Could be an explanation for why this was able to take off, for sure. I don't really remember what was going on here, to be honest. I don't remember who was posting about this. I don't remember what the takes were.
Definitely seems like the work of a genius creator to put your asshole right next to your vagina so that you can get infections.
I mean, that's the classic argument against God, right? That, no church in the world has ever been able to launch a viable counter argument against.
Right.
They just can't explain it. There's nothing in the Bible that gives any pretext for that to be a thing.
On the other hand, men do have a orgasm button inside of their buttholes, which feels intentional. That feels like a statement.
It's interesting how much of this conversation comes down to the butthole and the placement of it.
It's really the fulcrum of the body on which all else tilts.
If things were just a little bit different, maybe we'd all come down more strongly one way or the other on there being a god or not.
Well, we had a little bit of discourse, but I don't know if that's enough to boom this.
I think this is a doom for me just because I really do not remember this moment.
Major doom.
We're not done with J.D. Vance yet. We've got one more bullet for the guy. And again, this is one I think has real winning energy. J.D. Vance makes post unintentionally revealing that he potentially searched for questionable content involving women and dolphins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he screenshot that tweet of that dolphin humping that woman while she laughs, but the screenshot that he had posted, the words dolphin woman were bolded, right?
Yeah.
As if perhaps he found the clip by searching dolphin fucks woman or whatever.
Right. I could not really remember the exact particulars of this one. I just remember J.D. Vance dolphin sex being a thing. I think we're at the risk here of of diminishing returns with JD Vance, but I feel like the quality level here is still high enough for this one to get the boom.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's more just kind of like picking on the guy because he's a dweeb. Because I mean, clearly what happened is like in a late millennial, slightly awkward with your social media thing, he had seen that clip, wanted to make an unfunny tweet about it, couldn't find it, and then had searched Dolphin Woman to find it again. Right? Obviously, that's what happened.
I think it might be worth giving this one the boom just to round out this whole JD Vance trilogy we've been discussing, just because it was such a like prolonged moment. I think
True.
that Trump named this guy vice president at the beginning of the month. And over the course of the following 30 days, he had 3 separate incidences, not only where he like did something that made him look bad or like details were brought to light that made him look bad,
right?
But all 3 of those instances were both just very unique and very bizarre.
Yeah, like an online weirdo was getting exposed and it was funny. And he was having a flop season.
Yeah.
God, just think of all the things that weren't even on this list that happened that month too. Like when Trump blew Hulk Hogan a kiss during Hulk Hogan's keynote at the Republican National Convention.
I don't remember that.
Or like when Destiny, that like owned the conservative streamer, was like, I'm glad that firefighter died. Look what he tweeted about Israel. He deserves to die.
I don't remember that either. Wow.
It was a crazy month.
It was a very, very strange month on the timeline. I think, yeah, let's give this one the boom just to round out the JD trilogy.
What a crazy month. Probably the peak of the election year that month, you would say, right?
I mean, we're going to have to find out, right? We still got months. We still got 2 or 3 months before it even happens in this timeline.
Fair. But I mean, you got assassination attempt, incumbent dropping out of the race, lady coronated as new running person. It was just a crazy month.
Yeah. I mean, when you stack it all up, it's harder to deny. Okay. So this next one, kind of a vague, like, engagement bait, topic that I think went on for several days. Do you have any default rules for your life?
These are so weird.
Yeah.
Whenever they're positioned to me, these weird little existential questions, I'm not sure what to do with them.
This one really reads like data scraping to me. Like, oh, I need to put together, I'm trying to put together some kind of site or app where like, you get interesting rules to follow your life by. I wonder what some could be. Oh, I know. I will make this tweet that goes viral on Twitter and everybody will give me the content instead of me having to come up with it.
I'll have an algorithm that sorts them by likes and I'll weight them in my algorithm based on their likes. I agree with your theory.
And the worst part of this is I don't even really remember coming across any default rules that I would want to incorporate into my own life. This wasn't a very helpful round of discourse for me. It's not like any of those useful life hacks I see when I'm scrolling through Instagram.
Well, I believe it was Vitamin C featuring Buzz Luhrmann who told us everybody's free to wear sunscreen. So there's one. And then Mark Curry of Hanging with Mr. Cooper fame had a short-lived cable network game show called Don't Forget Your Toothbrush. So there's another one.
Sure, whatever you do, take care of your shoe. I think we could call that a third one.
A third one. Those are probably the top 3. Everybody's free to wear sunscreen. Don't forget your toothbrush. Whatever you do, take care of your shoes.
Well, we've got that sorted. Do we want to give this one a boom or a doom? I think
we doom this.
Pretty obvious, right?
It's a high bar for one of these question trends to get a boom, I feel like.
Yeah, we'll see if any of them make it. Next up, we've got a post that I have done the research. I have confirmed that this has been deleted, which is a true shame because I feel like it was almost like a never-ending source of comedy. Just a great example of somebody showing their own ass online. But we had a YouTube content creator posting a chat log that proves his ex was lying about the age of the guy she cheated on him with.
Oh boy. I can't place this, first of all.
So this was, I don't know who this YouTuber was. Again, I'm not on the YouTube scene. I had no background for any of this drama. The reason why this blew up was because of the contents of the message and how the fact that they allegedly proved that this guy's ex was lying about the age of the guy she cheated on him with. That was the last thing anybody was taking from these messages because they were just like, it was a never ending scroll marathon of this guy's ex berating him for just like all of his failings in this relationship and just personal failings.
Oh, right.
And like, it was just, the reaction was like, Batman could not torture this information out of me, you know? Like,
yes. Okay.
like the Viet Cong would not be able to.
I'm back on board.
Yeah.
I remember it now.
Like,
now I'm there.
And I have looked up, I have Googled this phrase, I have found the original tweet. It is gone. It does not seem like there is any record of it that I could find, but some of the material in it was just so fucking brutal. I'd never seen anybody talked to in that way and still be trying to, like, you know, get in with the person that they're talking to.
Crazy stuff.
It was like, why would I ever want to get back with you? You don't know how to fuck. You don't know how to kiss. Like, being around you makes me nauseous. Your personal hygiene is disgusting.
Yeah, it
was just tons of stuff. And this guy was posting it like, this proves it. I was right.
Pretty amazing.
Again, I just wish it was still around, you know? A lot of people say the internet is written in ink, not pencil. It seems like the only time that is not true is when you really want it to be.
Yeah, when you're Barbara Streisand and you're trying to publicly make it go away, then it gets bigger and bigger. But sometimes it just trickles away, sneaks away from us.
I just feel so bad that right now we can't be like swapping great quotes from this conversation, but like the material's not there.
It would have been a great fodder for my end of episode word discourse dudes, but alas, it's gone.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's gone.
Jeez, what could have been? Do we want to give this one like an honorary boom? Like,
I want to boom it. Let's immortalize it in our own small way by booming it.
Yeah. And you know, if anybody is listening and you happen to have access to this material, send it along, please.
Please, yeah, to whatever, discoursedudes@gmail.com, maybe?
Yeah, for now we're gonna give that one the boom. Only a couple more here. We've got 3 more points of discourse for the month. Let's talk about this almost penultimate one. Conservatives react to perceived anti-Christian imagery during Olympic ceremonies.
This was fun.
I remember getting a lot of, I don't think I saw any of the actual Olympic ceremony stuff that they were complaining about. I got a lot of this secondhand, but it just seemed like, very sensitive Christian conservatives just kind of reacting to anything that they could perceive as being like, you know, pro-Satan or something like that.
Yeah, I sat through the whole opening ceremony. I watched that. All the gay French shit, I watched it all.
I feel like I missed a lot of the Olympics discourse. This might be something we have to reckon with on the next episode, just because I was not able to get a lot of this stuff down. It all kind of blurred together for me. Maybe this will be the time when we talk about the Olympics. But just the things I remember were the breakdancing lady, ray gun.
There was the surfer whose ass got out on television. That was funny.
I don't remember that one. I do remember there was like a lot of like trans athlete debates or something, or like,
yeah, about that one boxer, Imani, whatever her name was.
Was that they thought she was trans and it turned out she was not, or something like that? I
believe that that they took and ran with the idea that she was trans because she had like failed a chromosome test by a pretty shady international boxing organization that maybe is like Russia money backed, and like the grander speculation still unproven is that maybe she was like intersex.
Okay. Which
becomes a more interesting conversation about athletics and chromosomes and whatnot. If you depoliticize it, it's interesting. If you politicize it, it's a meaningless conversation. Yeah, there was that. There was ray gun breakdancing. There was the dude's ass.
There was, I think there was like a shooting competition that a lot of like pictures from that went viral, like a lady holding a gun or something.
Yeah, that one lady who looked like real badass with her eyeglass or whatever.
So I'm wondering if we want to just kind of like take this as an opportunity to like boom or doom the Olympics overall, or would you really just like to focus on this one?
I think we can boom the Olympics overall. It seemed like it produced this year in terms of interesting discourse, didn't it?
Sure, and that will result in us also booming this topic of conservatives reacting to the anti-Christian imagery, which
it's weird that the conservatives were all about the Feast of Bacchanal looking too much like the Last Supper, and they didn't say anything about the weird segment of the opening ceremony that was about like 2 guys and a girl meeting in a library and then running to their apartment together to hornily fuck each other.
Man, what is going on at the Olympics? I missed that. What was the basis for that being in the ceremony?
Because French.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, that does make sense.
We're celebrating our Frenchness.
Horny French stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I assume Daft Punk were there.
They played Daft Punk music. I think Justice was there.
Oh, if you can't get Daft Punk, at least you got Justice, right?
We got Daft Punk at home.
Yeah. All right, so we'll give that one the boom.
I like Justice, for the record.
They're okay. Next up, penultimate point of discourse for July 2024. I remember this one feeling like a pretty crazy one. And like, I'm not even particularly tapped into this scene, but Marvel announces that upcoming Avengers movie will star Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, pretty funny moment.
Real flop sweaty, real desperate.
The reveal itself was like pretty fun to watch. Just the poses that Robert Downey Jr. was striking.
I'm booming it. It's so silly. It's such a bad idea. It's such a bad pitch.
Yeah.
And it's so nakedly, desperately trying to reclaim the lost ground of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was just funny. I enjoyed it.
We'll have to see how it pays off, truly. But yeah, we'll boom that one for now. Boom! Which brings us to the last point of discourse for July 2024. Kind of like the last moment, I feel like. Anything regarding the election had any kind of like positive buzz to it. Conservatives react to the Democratic Party calling Republicans weird.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This was funny. It was funny.
Almost seemed like in retrospect, like this was the one moment in the election where it seemed like they could have won.
Yeah, it was a good line of attack. Probably should have saved that gun for October, right?
Something like that. I mean, the thing that I'm always going to be wondering about this election is like how things, if anything might have been differently, if the timeline had just shifted and Biden had dropped out much closer to the race. Kamala had still picked up the reins. We had this little Republicans are weird moment going right into the polls. You know, would that have made a difference?
I wonder.
It did seem like there was genuine momentum behind the Kamala campaign. I know everybody was genuinely like reluctant to accept her as the candidate, but for this gleaming moment, it seemed like we were all on board and like we actually thought maybe we could do it.
Can you believe, though, from the fucking debate in June, that was a solid 5 months of just nonstop crushing election year discourse. So fatiguing.
Yeah.
The worst. I feel like what you got to do is just say, nobody's allowed to fundraise. Nobody's allowed to declare a candidacy until you're 100 days out. And we just speed run the whole thing, you know?
How would things be different? You got to wonder.
Anyway, the weird thing, it's like, I almost feel like you ultimately got to doom it because it led to nothing.
That's a solid argument for sure. The other argument I think you can make there was that like we did actually see a lot of like conservatives reacting very negatively to this, like,
which was funny.
Yeah,
it was funny to watch people flail.
Like it's like a vague insult where you're not really saying anything, but you know your target has done so much already where everybody knows exactly what you're talking about and they realize it.
Were we also handing the Republicans a playbook, so to speak, of being like, okay, well then we'll make sure that Rudy Giuliani and Roger Stone and like our weirdest weirdos are not visible during this?
That's, one angle you could examine. I feel like a lot of those people already had just been ousted, like as a result of their own incompetence or just being a liability for other ways. But yeah, just a lot of stuff you could potentially dig in here, which makes this feel boom worthy to me. I think I do see your argument that it did wind up being just kind of like a blank when it comes to shots. So yeah, I am torn.
I don't know. I'm right on the I'm on the razor's edge between boom and doom. I don't know what to do.
I feel like maybe we should default to the boom here just because in the months to come, a big talking point about disappointment in the Democrat campaign was that they quickly abandoned this talking point and muzzled a lot of the people on their side that were kind of trying to push this as a way of like, getting more voters. So
Maybe so. Maybe so.
It didn't end up amounting to anything material in terms of Democrat gains, but this discourse definitely did stick around and played a role throughout the entire campaign, whether it was being lobbied against the conservatives or not.
There were no dividends, but for one brief glorious moment, it seemed like there was some real oomph there.
Yeah. So we'll boom that one.
Kind of a nostalgic, wistful boom.
And speaking of glorious moments, that brings us to the end of this episode. We did it. We made it through July 2024. I know you're wondering, because this seemed like a pretty tight race. Did we have more dooms or booms? Dylan, do you want to guess?
Boy, it seems like July might have turned it around. And I mean, it makes sense considering what a crazy month this was for discourse. Maybe the craziest of all.
Do you want to hazard a guess on whether we had more booms or dooms this month?
I think the booms took it.
You think the booms took it? Well, I can confirm, it was a very tight race, just like the race we touched on multiple times throughout the episode. But 19-16, the booms took it in July.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, a banner month for discourse.
And, we've got banner months still to come. So be sure to tune in next time for our coverage of August 2024 on Twitter. Before we get into the sign-off stuff, I do want to say I haven't brought this up in any of the previous episodes, but we are halfway through the show by this point. I've taken the liberty to create a Gmail account for the show, discoursedudes@gmail. I also made us a Twitter or X account that's just @discoursedudes. And I just wanted to reach out to the audience and say if we have missed anything that you interpreted as being a material point of discourse as we've gone through the show, either send us an email or tweet at us, and maybe we will briefly hash it out on a future episode and decide whether it gets a boom or doom. Because, I did work on this list very hard, but I will readily admit it's not perfect. It's not 100% comprehensive, so I'm sure I missed something. And if I did, let us know.
Yeah, definitely hand us your picks for what was missed, and we'll not only boom or doom it, but also figure out whether or not it should have been included.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to hear from some audience members, but until we meet again, I'll just say that I've been Trevor.
I've been Dylan.
And that's it for Discourse. We'll see you for the next one.
We're Discourse Dudes. Of course we have itty bitty titties, a bob, a secret product, a trench, fake 10 hands, a hoop, a new Frank Green, a sneaky link, a Gen Z boss, a mini, an attitude, and our 5'3" in height.
We bring the boom!